Good morning, guys, from a sunny Ukraine. Today, where are we going?
To the conference, international one. Yeah.
We're going to be going to a conference hosted by Sri Lankan Curtin. We're going to be meeting with a bunch of Ukrainian supporters from around the world. And it should be fun, guys. Here's my taxi. Watch out for the bicycle. Blaska. Yeah. Should have found. Dobry ranok. Oh, it's comfortable, right? Very public. Dziękuję. Cool, guys. Really cool venue. Has owl on the side. Dziewczyna. Shotaka. Shotaka. Wow, it's a cool place, guys.
Usually we have festivals here, open air.
A concert or something, yeah. So there's the publishing house. This is Lviv Fashion Week is held. Did you know fashion is my profession? So I love this thing. It's like a transformer.
In this venue they also have, last time they had art and wine event.
Nice. Well, let's get some coffee and water.
Coffee and water. So we have coffee here.
Okay, that's good.
And there.
Okay.
I've never been inside it.
Let's go inside the book building.
Old Lion Publishing.
Oh, nice. Wow, it's cute in here.
Hey, Ben.
Oh. Wow, it's cool.
Yeah.
Here we go, guys. Here's the banner. What we did. That's good, guys. There's actually a second coffee shop. This place is cool. And speaking of cool, this is how the conference started.
My name is Orest. I'm local from Lviv. I was visiting United Kingdom and I met Jonathan, who is the main troublemaker here, who is actually the author of the channel. We were having like one, probably like on our second pint, someone in the oldest pub in Oxford. I told Jonathan, you know, like, why don't you come to Ukraine and change the format of your podcast, making it offline?
Jonathan Fink, please welcome. Whoa, Jonathan, nice to have you here.
It couldn't have happened without you.
And without you.
And you. This is a joint inspiration.
And I think this is an example of cooperation between Ukraine and the Western world, you know. It's not only about the world supporting Ukraine, Ukraine is, you know, doing something else. It's about cooperation. It's about being like 50-50, making 100 altogether.
So we're going to welcome up three fantastic guests on this panel who have really helped to contribute incredible solutions to the immense problems that Ukraine is going through. First on the stage, Johnny FD. Come on up. So I'll do a short introduction to each and then we'll crack on with the questions. So Johnny is a YouTuber, digital nomad, and supporter of Ukrainian civil society and volunteer initiatives. We'll hear more about that in a minute. We've got Brooks Newmark. Brooks, please join us. So Johnny, tell us a little about your story and...
Dobry den, everybody. Dobry ranako. So I had this big audience on YouTube that had over 200,000 subscribers at the time. And I thought maybe I can highlight what's actually happening in Ukraine while the momentum's going before people start forgetting and start going on to the next trend or the hot news item. So I realized, you know what, I need to just highlight other charities that are doing it already, that have the team in place. What I can do is help the people who are there. I've helped them now get night vision, get body armor, 3 vehicles already, and actually I'm working on a 4th vehicle for the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade, the best name in the world.
Hashtag NAFO.
Yeah.
Hi NAFO.
Hello, NAFO. Thanks for representing. Altogether, it's been an honor and privilege, but also I feel kind of like a duty as someone who was living here before the war to do whatever I can to help out.
You raise a good point here, I think, because we've got people involved in some extraordinary charities. These charities require a ton of money to do their work. It's not just the passion and expertise of people. They need money. We also need corporations to contribute. Well, let's turn to some of our questions. And I think one of the big topics that's come out here is this idea of private initiatives, of civil society filling the gaps which the state doesn't fulfill. What is, our speaker's impression of the effectiveness of civil society and what is unique about it in Ukraine? Brooke, let's start with you.
So guys, I just finished my panel. It went really good. Had some really cool people on stage with me. Had some really good questions. I'll try to put some clips from the uploaded Silicon Curtain recordings. You can check out their YouTube channel. It's called Silicon Curtain. And let's go inside and let's get ready for the next panel. So you have the journalists on stage now.
Russians make a big play of liberating Europe from Nazis, forgetting that they replaced one tyranny with another. They carried out a mass rape in Berlin of tens, hundreds of thousands of women. They then terrorized Eastern Europe for 50 years. So, interesting definition of liberation. We've got Ukrainians and Russians are one people. That's, I know, that's going to get a lot of size there. That's absolute nonsense that needs to be overcome.
Okay, so after some great talks, we're gonna get some, hopefully great lunch, because I'm hungry. That's like Pizza Hut. Where we start, left or right? Yeah. So guys, we are at Solova Idayu, having a little lunch break. Looks good. Solyonka. Is this,
It's a green borscht.
Oh, borscht Zelensky borscht. Zelensky borscht. And we got Anna, who can sit here. Ulaska. It's like we're in school again.
Yes, school canteen.
Yeah. That's what Anna in Ukraine eats for lunch.
And tomato juice.
Oh, so healthy.
I have relatives in Argentina who cannot believe people drink juice out of tomatoes.
It's strange, right?
It's impossible.
It's strange.
How is that possible?
Yeah. All right, so we just had a nice lunch, and we're gonna go back in for the next panel, guys.
I think for me, an inspiring panel. This is one where perhaps I knew absolutely least before I went on the journey of discovering Ukrainian identity and the source of Ukrainian resistance.
The activities, what I do is my coping mechanism actually, and the results that I see, and communication with people, the meaningful work. I think it's meaningful what I do with my colleagues and connecting Ukraine to international cultural community, art community.
Now another break, another 25 minutes, guys, and we'll be continuing at 4.
We had a nice little conversation out here about culture in Ukraine. Last panel now.
Let's kick off again.
Panel 4, Freedom and Victory. When this war started, the US and many predicted that Ukraine would fall in 3 to 10 days. That's what many in Russia and the West seem to think. Now Russia has the 3rd or 4th best army in Ukraine, I lose track of which it is, and it's staring down the barrel of a gun to defeat. What counts as a sustainable victory for Ukraine? I'm delighted to be joined on stage by Anna Danilchuk, YouTuber, academic, who's been running a war diary since the start of the war.
Hello guys, my name is Anna and I vlog daily from Ukraine since the start of brutal Russian invasion. So if you want to know more about real life in my country during these challenging times, you support Ukraine, please subscribe. That is the easiest way to demonstrate your solidarity and spread information about Ukrainian resilience and Russian war crimes.
If you're not watching it, where have you been for the last year and a half? Next, I'm joined by the extraordinary Alena Halushka. She's a board member of the Ukrainian NGO Anti-Corruption Action Center and co-founder of the International Center for Ukrainian Victory. She's an extraordinary activist, and I know you're absolutely going to love everything she says. And finally, we've got Joe Lindsley, daily Ukraine correspondent for WGN Radio.
When that first S-300 missile arrived,
Lindsley has provided something rare in our world of corporate and automated radio, regular, real humanity.
Joe's a traveler and writer, and I know I'm going to become an avid fan of his work. I'm going to binge all of your stuff when I get back home. Let's start with a heavy topic, because there was a NATO summit. There was also a NAFO summit in parallel, so let's mention of the NAFO fellas out there. There was a NATO summit and there were high hopes of that. But what we see here is a continuation of the incremental supply, incrementalism. And whereas that might make some strategic sense, it's enormously costly in terms of time and Ukrainian lives. So could we please address this idea of incrementalism and why it has to end?
Thank you so much. I was observing the very process of the NATO forum. I had my dreams concerning that, realizing that at the moment Ukraine cannot join NATO, but perhaps we should make our relations more official. And for many Ukrainians, deadline, a roadmap is something that they really need to make it more realistic. And at the same time, remembering myself in February 2022, just before the start of full-scale Russian invasion, I did not believe it was possible. There were lots of articles, lots of highly respected people all over the world speaking, shouting, screaming about that. But I have consciously chosen the articles that persuaded it's irrational, it's illogical. It is. It is. But Russia is irrational and illogical. My beautiful subscribers, greetings to them if they will be watching, and they will be, told me there is a term, a psychological term, which explains it all, and that is normalcy bias. When, from your cognitive perspective of a normal human being, you cannot predict such evil exists. You cannot predict such war is possible after so many lessons that we've learned in the 20th century. And many nations who are still far away from the epicenter of things that are happening right now in Ukraine still believe we can return back to normal, and that this previous kind of normal is possible. But global security system demonstrated lots of flaws. We did not manage to prevent this war because Russia is irrational, illogical, and monstrous at the moment. We have to accept that this is pure evil, modern Nazism that is targeted at the destruction of culture, language, children, hospitals, everything. That's why we have to be also violent, because Russia is a global bully that probes the world, and if it sees no reaction, it escalates. That's why they only understand when we are able to stop their missiles or target some of their military bases, supplies in Crimea, and possibly, potentially in future on Russian territory. And I think that, summing it all up, global community has to finally agree that if we are supporting Ukraine, it's not about you are giving 5 planes, then I am giving 3 jets. If you're not giving, I'm not giving. It's about an existential fight, future and security of the planet. So as long as it takes and as much as it takes, we're giving.
Well, I will actually catch up on what Anna said, and I think that the key problem is that there is no consensus that Ukraine should win this war. And as we all know, the goal defines the means.
My name is Yosef, of Joe, American. Because of Russian propaganda, we don't hear about in America. And if you look at the BBC and all the mainstream media, they do a great job, and very brave reporters, of talking about Russian atrocities. But what they miss is the story of the Maidan Ukraine, the real democratic Ukraine. We still hear the Russian narrative about corruption, when Russia is in fact the most corrupt country in the world. But my main focus is the information war, because, and just a quick summary of it, I used to work for Fox News. I knew Tucker Carlson. I call him by a different name if I'm not on microphone. And I knew these people. I was protege to Roger Ailes on Fox News. I escaped Rupert Murdoch's empire in a car chase. They made a movie about it with Russell Crowe playing my boss. Some other guy played me. That's why I came to Ukraine. It was a peaceful way to get away from all this craziness. And now the craziness is here. And I realized this is my mission in 2 ways: to reach Americans, because I came from that world of Americans who talk about freedom every day, but so many of them believe the Russian propaganda.
We're almost at time, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to leave off where you mentioned victory twice. There are so many ways in which victory is defined.
Definitely liberation of entire territory, that's must. Justice, accountability, not only for the war crimes, but for the mother of all crimes, which is act of aggression, and Ukraine's membership in EU and NATO as the security guarantee that this won't repeat when Russia rearms.
Of course, the collapse of Russia that we discussed, and many beautiful democratic states appearing. I have many favorite writers who were killed in 1930s. Very often when I think about this period in Ukraine, Holodomor, Stalin's terror, I imagine how different our country would have been if this didn't happen. How many beautiful, extremely modern, adventurous, rebellious people would be developing Ukraine. So the victory will be that many really talented people will remain in Ukraine, will survive in Ukraine, and will continue building our country. One of the arguments that work really well with those who doubt: Ukraine can easily and successfully live without Russia. Russian Empire cannot imagine itself without. So our true victory is our forever independence and the ability to develop the country the way we want, and I'm extremely optimistic about Ukrainian civil society. Russia is definitely the mother of corruption, and all that we have is that Soviet heritage that we will definitely sweep away.
We do need the support of the West, so victory must mean an idea and a change of heart. And it must mean that people all over the world, regular people who choose their governments, believe that they can choose their governments, believe they have agency, and believe in freedom. Then victory will happen. That's the key, to change minds and hearts, to get people to believe in Maidan everywhere, including New York, London, Beijing, all around the world. That's the goal.
Thank you so much, 3 panelists, Joe, Aliana, Anna. The crucial thing is to get this message out here. So we're going to have the live Q&A session after a short break.
Guys, great talk. Hey, talk, Joe. Great to meet you. Really good talk. Good job. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, time for some drinks. So, Nick, day's almost done. What were your impressions?
It's actually really cool. It's a podcast that I was listening to before I even met Johnny. So whenever you invited me to come, I was like,
oh, cool.
Yeah, of course I'm going to come. So really knowledgeable speakers, jam-packed with info. I learned a lot and just had a good time networking. So yeah, definitely.
Met some cool people as well.
Yeah, whenever they post this, even if it's not live anymore, I definitely encourage you to
It'll be, I'll post it at the same time.
Johnny, and also speakers there.
Okay, let's go.
Ukraine continues to fight. Russian myths. We've got Anna Danilchuk, YouTuber and academic, has been doing a war diary daily since the war began. We've got Elena Harlashka, who is a board member of Ukrainian NGOs, a massive force in Ukrainian civil society. We've got John Sweeney, investigative journalist and writer. We've got Sofia Chelyak, program director of the Lviv Book Forum. And we've got Brooks Newmark, who has been doing extraordinary work in evacuating tens of thousands of civilians away from front lines. Who wants to start? This is a free form here, whoever grabs the mic first.
Happy to go in. Yes, I've always had the view that Putin is just a regional thug leading a kleptocratic mafia state. Like all bullies, he's a weak person, which is why he bullies. We've seen a couple of times when he's backed off. One when Erdogan, he threatened untold revenge if anything happened to any of his planes. And we saw that, in fact, Erdogan, when he tried to call Erdogan's bluff, Erdogan then shot down one of his planes.
A Russian military jet shot down not by ISIS, but by Turkey, saying Russia was flying over their airspace. A plume of smoke, a Russian warplane shot out of the sky by Turkish fighter jets. Turkey saying they issued 10 warnings in about 5 minutes' time. The two pilots ejecting, at least one now believed dead. Russian President Vladimir Putin calling the move a, quote, stab in the back, now vowing serious consequences.
He jumped up and down, but then did nothing, and then formed an alliance with him. We saw with Prigozhin recently that Prigozhin then took him on, called his bluff. He then invited him for tea, and this was tea that wasn't poisoned 5 days later. So I think there's a complete miscalculation and misunderstanding and a myth around Putin. He is at heart a weak person.
I think we are lucky today to be in the community of people who totally agree with each other. And I also agree that Putin is a bully in the center of the global politics. He's definitely afraid, and he even demonstrates it to the world with these long tables, with bunkers, where nobody knows he is. And I do believe he has doubles, though I don't like this series, but he might. And another thing is that as a Ukrainian, I believe that if we had greater reaction to the annexation of Crimea back in 2014, if we would react and stop Putin and demonstrate that these are not green peoples, these are Russian troops occupying Ukrainian territory. Now they are using Crimea as a military base and supply base. It's vital for Ukrainian counteroffensive and future victory to take Crimea back.
It was February 2014. The autocratic pro-Russian ruler of Ukraine had just fled the country after being forced out of office by pro-democracy street protests. And in that confusing aftermath, soldiers began appearing in the southern Ukrainian province of Crimea. The soldiers had no identifying insignia. They wore plain green uniforms, and they came to be known as the Little Green Men. Within a couple of weeks, the whole of Crimea was under the control of these Little Green Men. They were clearly pro-Russian. They spoke Russian, and they were heavily armed with Russian weapons. But Russian President Vladimir Putin insisted they were not Russian troops. Russians, in quotation mark, occupy Crimea airports. So it was clear to everyone on the ground in Crimea that these were Russian soldiers in disguise. But the entire Russian government was denying from top to bottom that they were Russian soldiers. NATO and the US seemed kind of flummoxed about how to respond. I mean, how do you stop an invasion when you can't even get everyone to agree that an invasion is happening?
And he's testing the world. He is the one who provokes the world constantly. And as all bullies and cowards, he only understands the language of power and violence. And by telling him, he says, we will nuke London if something goes wrong. And he receives an answer, we are concerned and we will look at the articles and so on. And here, even as a linguist, I may say, if you hear a nuke or an article, what terrifies you more? So, first of all, if not doing, we have at least to start talking with him. If you are moving, for example, nukes to Belarus, you will get nukes in Ukraine. But he is constantly testing, and if there is no reaction, he continues. That's what all bullies do.
John, you are famously one of the only journalists ever to challenge Putin.
I did challenge Putin. We should have said in 2006, when the Russian dark state used polonium against Litvinenko and killed him, and he was a British citizen, this is bad. And we should have been much more effective. Instead, what we did was we deported 4 diplomats. All Putin has to do is to print 4 new diplomatic passports. He doesn't care. Novichok, Salisbury, somebody died. One of our people died. Many people's lives were ruined forever. And an entire city lived in fear for a year. Still lives in fear to an extent. And the reason, and what we did was we chucked out another 20 diplomats. Putin doesn't care about that. Ukraine is paying in blood because of our cowardice, and we've got to fix that.
And John, why? I mean, just a follow-on question. I think Elena mentioned this in a previous panel. Why have we continued to treat Putin as a statesman and not a gangster, almost up to the present day?
There's fear, and then there's money. I would like to burn down Londongrad. I would like to make it impossible for dark Russian money to hide itself in the city of London. And I would also say to our friends in Europe, stop buying Russian oil and gas, full stop. And I'd also like to say to our Chinese, I'm trying to find the word, I'm not going to use the word friends. I also like to say to the Chinese government and the Indian government, stop trading with Russia in the way that you're doing, or if you carry on like this, we're going to stop buying your stuff. Do you understand? Because we've got to be tougher.
Russia reads messages very well, and Russia reads messages of weaknesses very well. And take a look at Kakhovka Dam. Take a look how this was communicated by the mainstream Western media from the very beginning when Russians blew up it. It's unclear. We still have to wait for some kind of additional evidence. Both sides could have been interested in that, etc., etc. And when the momentum actually, was lost, when the water went down, when people who were drowning in their own backyards, were found and buried, all of a sudden there was the journalistic investigation, I think in New York Times, that yes, according to all of the technological aspects, probably Russians blew up the Kakhovka Dam. Where are the sanctions for blowing up the Kakhovka Dam, the largest technological man-made catastrophe in Europe since, I don't know, in decades? Nothing. All those things, messages of weaknesses, they are very well read by Russians. And unfortunately, if Russians do the terrorist act at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, it will be the consequence of the lack of responses to previous nuclear terrorism, as well as to the lack of response to other technological, large-scale, unimaginable catastrophes which Russians are led to be doing in Ukraine.
Now,
well, Jonathan, great job today.
Thank you.
Amazing time. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome today.
That was awesome to meet you in Ukraine in reality.
In real life? Guys,
Yeah, in real life.
I'm going to let you know, Anna is really tall.
Yes, I am.
Way taller than you would expect.
I don't know why do you think I'm not, but 1 meter 74 centimeters.
Wow. That's like 6'8", guys.
Yeah.
For the ones that get No, but it was really nice to meet you in person, and really good talk. I'll try to cut in some of your clips because I think it was really, really useful.
Thank you so much. And I typically end my videos with Slava Ukraini, and you can answer that.
Hold Slava. Oh, okay. You said it. One more time.
Slava Ukraini.
Hold Slava. Exactly.
All right.
It's not the festival.
Hi.
Great job, both of you.
Cheers.
Great panel.
Yes.
Really enjoyed it.
Good.
John?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you want to tell people?
I want to say, I have a simple message to Vladimir Putin. It goes like this: Vladimir Putin, do fuck off.
And you want to say something to Mr. Vladimir Putin if he's watching?
Oh my god, like the same line, but I can't speak like with such nice British accent, so please do it. Do it for yourself.
So, the message to Vladimir Putin is Vladimir Putin, do fuck off.
Putin hulo.
Samatak.
Yeah. Well, the conference is officially over. It's been a really good day. I can see everyone here kind of networking, hanging out. Thank you everyone for watching. Check out their live stream that's already published, and also the panel of mine on. They've published all the talks on Silicon Kern. So check them out, subscribe to them, and let's go eat, guys. Really cool. Well, after a long day's conference, we're gonna eat at the legendary Riberna. Dobry dzień. They gave us some more fresh. They gave us the leftovers. That's good. Oh, guys. Finally, someone orders more than me. Guys, I'm so hungry. I'm glad we have this. And this is palanitsa. Did I say it correctly? No. All right, it's a palanitsa. Not strawberry, not palanitsa, but palanitsa. Okay, smash dough. Dig in, buddy. I'm always ready. Perfect. I've been ready for hours. How it's going to go in the future. Roberta? So good. Orest, cheers to having a great day. Cheers. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Cheers, guys. Good more.
Do a video? We have a simple message from Vladimir Putin, and it goes like this: Vladimir Putin,